people of the internet. It is Dave, it is Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Norwegian prog band Åkrust. The band's new album, Waving at the Sky, will be released on June 13th via Inside Out Music. Released in 2023, Åkrust's debut album, The Approbation, introduced a new force in progressive metal and a fresh strain of artful heaviness that instantly chimed with the prog community and beyond.
I was about to say, when they write beyond, they might as well just put in brackets Metal Epidemic.
The great response to The Approbation, Metal Epidemic, was beyond what we could have ever imagined, says Simon. This all started as the side thing.
I also don't dispute that. We have interviewed them and they didn't grasp how good the album was.
No.
So we're like, I'm going to use that again. It could be a future t-shirt design. This old thing. Like, yes, this fucking new shiny amazing thing.
Yeah. Simon says, this side thing was just for Martin and myself to hang out a bit more, drink beer, play music, and just be together in each other's company.
The only time I've ever, like, you know what comes out of a session with me drinking beer, hanging out with my friends? Naked, like, teabagging. Like, just, like, violent teabagging.
All right. I was going to say podcast.
Not writing
but
music or, like changing the world. Like borderline
Duncan,
sexual harassment and molestation, you know what I mean?
we're changing the world one podcast at a time, my man.
We are. I like that. I like the spin that you put on sexual deviancy. One podcast at a time.
It's another t-shirt for you.
Anyway,
we've got tons of mails and messages from every continent, people showing their support and love, and that makes the time Martin and I spent together making music feel extra worthwhile and touching. Since the release, we've been playing some live shows in England, Germany, Norway, and the Netherlands.
No Scotland. Come on.
Guys, come on.
Come on, tough.
But at the same time, we've been doing our many yearly trips to our now famous cabin to write new material for what has become Waving at the Sky.
I will say that if they want to forgo visiting Scotland to write a new album, I will not be like that. No, Scotland, come on.
Come on. Waving at the Sky takes everything that was compelling about The Approbation and pushes it further towards progressive perfection. A dark and devastating concept record about real-life events, it's a spiritual successor to its predecessor and a huge leap forward on every conceivable level. We started on this album even before The Approbation was released, so it's a somewhat continuation of our last record musically, says Simon. At the same time, The Approbation was extremely easy to write. It was basically just the first thing that popped into our heads and our hands as we were writing it. Strictly inspired
Hate my life right now.
by the music we grew up with and really didn't try to make anything specific. On Waving at the Sky, we tried to evolve ourselves in a more original direction, to dig a bit deeper into our musical selves and to try a bit more stuff than last time, but without losing ourselves in it. And I think that's we've achieved exactly that. Meanwhile, the album's hazy, unsettling narrative is based on the harrowing events that took place in rural Norway when Simon and Martin were children. Story-wise, this is the prequel to the first album. The lonely man in the cabin who was going insane on The Approbation is one of the characters in our new album, referred to as the stepdad. The story is about two families that are neighbours who both abuse their children and then they start doing it with each other's children too. This was a big thing on the news in Norway. The spoken words in the intro and in the last song are things taken from the eventual trial. It's basically as dark as you get. Martin and myself were a lot younger, so we didn't comprehend or grasp the depths of it at the time. Now, over a decade later, each with our own daughters and family, the case suddenly had an extreme impact when it came to mind on one of the first trips to the cabin.
I just want to stress that had I read the press, which I don't do, all that teabagging molestation shit at the start of this review would have been omitted. A heads up would have been nice, Dave.
Beautiful stuff, Duncan.
Thanks. Dave's like, no, I'll help you with that, Noose. Just keep going. Get through this together. Thanks, Dave.
You are welcome. Written and recorded, drums aside, at the duo's cabin in Norway. The album was engineered by the band themselves, then subsequently mixed to prog perfection by Simon from the band in his studio in Oslo, and mastered by his father. I'm not going to try and pronounce his name because I'd probably butcher
Oh,
it.
please do. Please
Simon's
do.
dad,
Come on.
basically.
I'll make people forget
asked
about the
him.
beginning.
No. This is
Go
all
on,
on
give
you,
it a
Duncan.
try. Yeah, but
thanks.
you're usually good at this. Bands will tell
No, I'm
you,
not.
like, in fact, if memory serves correctly, Ochros told you that you pronounced their band name right.
I think they were just, trying to make me feel better for fucking up. So yeah, we've been anticipating this. As Duncan said, we spoke to the band on the last album cycle.
Yeah, like, so the
And-
album came out, we absolutely adored it, and then I think I've never grown more respect for a recording artist than Ochros after finding out more information about the band.
Yeah.
So an amazing chat, and like I came away from it just like marveling that we happened to, and I don't use these words lightly, what weird fate put us on the planet as humans in a time period where Ochros released an album like that. It's so much so that Haken on the same label that year released, like, we're not prog fans, right? But
No.
released an album that both of us were like, this is like probably as good as it gets. And this year in is probably as good as it gets. And neither one of us could like put the Haken album above, and we're going to get to Haken in a minute, but couldn't put it above Ochros because that album just felt so real.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, to see that we've been excited for future music would be the fucking biggest understatement in recorded history.
Yeah, it's been a long 2-year wait.
Aye, but they've been writing this for
Yeah.
longer, so
Yeah, but it's finally upon us, Duncan. So what we got to begin, Duncan. Waving at the sky, Duncan.
if their next album isn't called This Old Thing, I'm going to be like, no, sorry, what? This Old Thing ? If it's not called that, then I'm travelling to Norway.
Before that, though, what did you think of album 2 from Ochros, Waving at the Sky?
Right, so it's not often that I fully display my cards before I get into detail here. Yeah. I said before I thought their debut album was perfect. I may have even used the word masterpiece, right? And I stand by, unlike another review tonight, I stand 100% by that previous review. I think it was like, it was a 5-star album. It was like, to me, there's not a second I would change.
Yeah.
It was a perfect album. And I have been more nervous about this release than, like, because there's always, on a debut more than anything, the nervousness kicks in. Is it lightning in a bottle? Is it a fluke? Is it that you had, like, a huge amount of time? Because you remember, debut albums is really everything the band has ever done up to that point that makes into the album. So you could sometimes have 4 or 5 years worth of songwriting and all the rest that appears on that album. And that's why some debuts are just like, this is, and then the band doesn't, because they've got less time to write an album. They're like, I don't know what to do. So when it was announced that Ochros were coming back, and I would say this so soon, 2 years like to follow up the Approbation is nuts. I was nervous, like, to say the least. Am I going to enjoy it as much? It's going to let me down. Like, could it be better? And if so, how does it be better? Like all these questions I went through. I will say, I think Waving at the Sky is a better album than The Approbation. I will also make my case. Okay. I will also say that it is very much a different album. It's a different listening experience. The Approbation to me is, in some respects, less proggy than Waving at the Sky, only by the sheer nature of how the genre switched on that. So I found that when I listened to the Approbation, I got these elements of sludge, I got these elements of black metal, I got these elements of prog, of like almost kind of 70s rock, kind of like those 80s and 90s influence that we talked about in a review that seemed to work their way through. I likened it, and I said it to the band, it kind of felt like the old man and the kind of story, the concept of the album at death's door was reimagining himself at different time periods, and the album felt like it captured like specific decades that moved along, which the band claimed they didn't. totally intended it. I can read through the lines. They were nodding in a way. We're like, he knows. Like, fucking cool. But it felt like an album where there was distinct movements as you worked your way through it. Waving at the Sky is a more complete sounding album in terms of its tone. I also think it's much more ambitious, whilst managing to maintain a uniform sound throughout in a way which is just kind of incredible. This album is like if all the band had been doing in the last 2 years is training.
Yeah.
Like in a Rocky montage. That's kind of what you get here. To say I was floored by this is an understatement, and this is me giving away my cards on this one. If the previous album was a perfect album, this album is above. This is when people start using. I agree with you 200%. You're like, no, mathematically doesn't make sense. 100 is the maximum number. No, 150. You're like, no, 100 is like. I kind of think this is beyond perfection in the weirdest way, and there are numerous reasons behind that. One, I think their songwriting is more confident, which is scary as fuck, because how does that happen? The guitar work on this is, the lead work in particular is just fucking incredible. The production on the guitars as well. When you listen to a track like Families Are Forever, for example, which closes out on this glorious like string synth section and this hauntingly beautiful lead guitar piece, like that, like even just talking about it, the hairs on the back of my neck are like standing up, like goosebumps listening to it. Like it's just like absolutely incredible. The fucking balls on these guys to not only start off the album with a track called Proceeding, which is kind of tongue-in-cheek considering this is set before the previous album. Smart move. Which is a fully instrumental track, and then give you the Trauma, which plays about 2 minutes before vocals come in. So you've listened to about 5 minutes of this album before they drop the lyrics and the vocals, and when the vocals kick in, I will say this is a stronger vocal performance than the previous album. That's gutsy.
Yeah,
that's confidence. That's right, we know who we are, we know what we're doing now, and we're kind of leaning into this. The Trauma we had done a reaction to, I believe. And I think we remarked at the time, you know, like, why is there so little vocals in this? At the same time, though, track's fucking bitching. It gives way to incredible vocal performances from then onwards. Families Are Forever, which is track 3, which is the first big long form track here, like well over the 7-minute mark, is a beautiful, haunting, dark, and stunning bit of songwriting. Just like jaw drop, floor, like embracing, like falling over backwards, like just paralyzing track in terms of how it's put together. Which then leads into like the band just casually like swinging in that kind of proggy, organy, Conflated Memories, which is a woozy, wonderful track of kind of, once again, haunting melodies and kind of playfulness. The songwriting on that track particularly is a testament to how their songwriting is just, the songwriting and the production, coming back to production, but the songwriting is just elevated here. It's a track that up until about 2/3 of the way through sticks within the pocket of kind of, you know, it's that sort of kind of just moving woozy sort of melody before, like, now I don't want to get this wrong, what sounds like a massive synth solo, right? We're going to get to the synths on this album, because if this album had a hole, I'd fuck it, right? I'd marry it as well, I'd put a ring on it. It switches gears towards the end, where it becomes much more like what I would class as traditional prog, with like lots more keys, being a lot more playful, and it takes a more prominent kind of part in the construction of the album. and ends, once again, huge guitar solos and whatnot. We then had already reacted to The Malevolent. This features your man from Haken, like a marriage made in heaven. It's the shortest song on here, like actual song, not like instrumental. Also has the catchiest chorus. Like chorus in that track, from the moment we reacted to it, has been just like looping around. I fucking love it. I think it is also incredibly well placed. Like smart song placement here. It's also much more conventional. It once again brings in those elements of kind of later day Mastodon that we'd mentioned in the previous album. Is busy without being busy. Let's talk about the closing two songs, Dave. Ghosts of Yesteryear might be the MVP of this album. MVP. Oh, I love this song, by the way. I love this song because it's 6 minutes long, which is about half the length of the closing track, by the way. But it's a song that really kind of subverts expectation. Starts off building into something which, from a listening perspective, you're like, oh, this one's going to fuck me hard. This slaps. It's like hard. It's aggressive. It's punchy. Plenty of lead work. Like it's a driving song, right? Until about a third of the way through, and then it becomes almost Hex Vessel. Remember the translucent eyeball, where everything became folksy and pagany in 70s? Yeah. It switches into that with appropriate key sounds, appropriate guitar sounds, lush warm melody.
Yeah.
And then lead work to fucking die for, before then taking all those elements and then injecting them into the same drive and progressive push that the song had before towards the end of the second third, and then closing out with a combination of big old heavy, bouncy, headbangy stuff and proggy goodness. It is a fucking triumph, a triumph of songwriting. It's absolutely incredible. And then you get the closing song, almost 12 and a half minutes of Waving at the Sky, which is a beautifully haunting, wonderful movement of music. Like mixed in with like spoken word audio samples, and like links everything. The closing track links all those elements from everything before all the way through. It's a great way to close out. And it's one of those ones as well that even the end, which is a fade out, which I know Dave hates, but the fade out is like it's a minute and a half long, so you can that's a long fade out. You can forgive that. I know the fade outs you hear were like playing the chorus, we're playing next song, and you're like, well, like just like stop or something. Songwriting, I think, is improved, which I didn't think was possible. Vocally, I adored this album. They still have the heavy gruff bit. There's still those blackened elements in there. I think the melody is like steroid injected, leveled up. I think this is beautiful, it's haunting, and it's engaging. I think the composition is better on this one. I think the overall vibe of the album just flows. And I didn't have an issue with the previous flow on the album at all. The last one did feel riskier. And in some respects that didn't add to its charm. But I actually think they've settled into a second album, which is arguably more difficult to do when you come off that impeccable first album. But I think they've done it in a way where I feel the story, I follow the tracks, I work it through, and I don't think they've cut corners in anything. I think if anything, they've spent more time just elevating everything they do musically. The production on this is fucking phenomenal. This might be one of the best produced albums I've heard this year. The bass sound on this one, and we've been speaking about bass all night, this is my favourite bass guitar production I've heard this year. It is absolutely wonderful. It is as natural as a bass will ever sound, and it is produced incredibly well, as is the drums. I love the drums have that live in-room feel to them, and they underpin everything in the most incredible way. I didn't think it was possible to beat the Approbation. I've been hesitant all the way up to the release of this one, even with the two singles which took different strides, I was still like, right, I really like this, and I really like this. I don't know where we're going with it though. Hearing it in the context of the whole album, I think this is a complete home run. I will be incredibly shocked if this isn't my top 5 at the end of the year. I think it's absolutely fucking... These guys, the combination, whatever it is, between these two guys, there is something there which is just beguiling as a music fan, and they make it sound. I've said this umpteen times before. They make it sound so easy. This is the most organic sounding album I've heard this year as well. Everything just sounds like it's in its right place because it's supposed to go there. Yeah, I absolutely love this. I will be heartbroken if you don't join me. I will be, because like this is our band, Dave. This might break up the team. So why did you hate Waving at the Sky? Yeah, why did you hate Waving at the Sky? Not edgy enough?
I'm probably going to break your heart here, Duncan. So, yeah, I mean, like, to say we loved the Approbation is an understatement.
Yes.
That is insanely good. Loved everything about it. The concept, the tone, the whole recording in the cabin in the woods. Like, it was everything we didn't know we wanted from a prog album.
You know what I mean? It was like if you were writing the script to a movie that me and Dave would fucking go and see and give 5 stars to.
Yeah.
That, like, the story of that album
everything
is
about
that.
It. The music video is the lot. So as a debut, it was just like mind blowing. And like if that's what they're doing on a like hangout, drink beer, play music type album, then what the fuck? What's going to come after that? Like, really?
I'm reshaping things. All I do is play chess with my friends when I drink.
Okay, so the first thing I would say about this is, and I would recommend it, is this is a listening experience that you need to do uninterrupted. Like, this is not a couple of singles type album, you know, like set aside the 45 minutes and give it the full attention that it deserves.
I'm going to say good headphones as well, Dave.
Good headphones are a must, yeah. If you thought like Awcrust took you to Prog Town on their debut, then yeah, you've not seen anything yet. That Approbation was a prog album, but this is a prog album.
Yeah, they're leaning in now.
This is capitals, bold, underlined prog album. They've doubled down. The prog elements here are even more potent than they were previously. This has got huge swaths of. What did you say there?
Keep Any band that embraces the keyboard is the band that I will follow into battle. So
there's huge swaths of like Pink Floyd, King Crimson, the Pineapple Thief, Riverside. It's saturated in a lot of like traditional prog ideology, but also never imitates it in a way that feels like just a replica of those bands. It's the Awcrust's kind of take or version of it, where they inject more technically punchy and rhythmic kind of drive to the sound, or something more expansive and dynamic, which will give you something more kind of modern, like Haken or Temic or Leprous or even Opeth from time to time. But then there are also touches that remind me of stuff that are outside of that, kind of more like maybe like Radiohead or Porcupine Tree. So like incredibly varied in tone and texture still, but just like the last time, Awcrust delivered this in such an epic way. Like, it has the moments of heaviness. It could be even heavier than the previous album, where it becomes even more riff driven, groovy, where you can feel that kind of like the weight of those guitars, but also like pivots into these huge sprawling sections with much more kind of delicate instrumentation. And for me, the way they've delivered it on Waving at the Sky feels, again, I've said this about the debut, but they sound years ahead of where they should be for album 2. This is even more refined, more focused than the Approbation. Even though it's only been 2 years since the Approbation, like there's a noticeable jump forward in all the areas of their songwriting. It's like they're progressing in dog years, basically, for this album. And it's one of those albums that is more instant than Approbation. Like Approbation had an intro track, and then that kind of like then led into the Pale Moon. So like it took its time to kind of build and up into that kind of heavy ending. This record kind of starts with a bit more urgency. Proceeding sets the proggy stall out like within the first few seconds. And even though it's over 3 minutes, it is like an intro track of sorts. Like there's no vocals. It builds on the proggy rhythms and bouncy guitars. There's strings. I think there's maybe some orchestral elements in there as well that are a touch kind of Ishan kind of esque as well. But it's almost like the precursor to the Trauma track 2, which continues to build on those progressive moments, using some of the same motifs from the first track before the vocals finally come in about like 2.5 minutes into the track. So as far as the first couple of tracks go, it's very, very much had this like kind of forward motion, building on the melodies and the layers, which eventually like culminates in the last 30 seconds where it goes like full Opeth mode, big growling vocals. So although a different type of beginning to the Approbation, it actually ends up playing out exactly how the Approbation did on track 2 with that big heavy end and then guttural vocal. So there is like similarities there. But then you go into a slightly different direction on track 3, Families Are Forever, and this is where they start to show you a bit more of what they've been developing over the last 2-3 years. The sound is huge on this track, more expansive than ever. It's got some really clever, kind of like almost kind of folksy kind of moments with like the picked guitar. There's a kind of slower kind of drum groove, and the strings sound gorgeous on this album. And all of those elements kind of heighten the moments where the track goes from kind of calmness to big and kind of dark. And this track has that in spades. Like the growls are back on another track on this track as well, which is something they never did on the Approbation. It was a one and done. They had growls on one track at the end of the Pale Moon, and that was it. But they're using it more often on this album to add a kind of extra level of heaviness or mood, to give it more intensity. But there's also some really interesting vocal ideas on this track. They use these kind of nice dreamy kind of vocal layers to make the track kind of swell in size, when it matters. Also some really like killer guitar work. The solo on Families and Forever is absolutely brilliant. Like the way they backdrop it with the synth sounds, it's like huge sounding, like massive. Conflating Memories was probably one of the highlights for me. And again, I said this in one of the reaction videos, I think, but I feel like Simon definitely has a likeness to Daniel Johns from Silverchair on this, especially on this track, and the track we reacted to as well. The two tones, like, they're similar characteristics. I'm talking more latter day Silverchair, obviously, like the Neon Ballroom diorama kind of era, where it was less kind of grungy. But Simon's melody on this track is fucking outrageously good. Like, I didn't think his vocal could outdo what he did on the Approbation, but somehow he's managed to find like another level on this one. And like, I'm going to double down here, Duncan. The synth solo on that track is fucking insane. Like, holy shit.
Do it, dude. It's how you do it. It's the only genre where you get away with that in 80s pop. Are the only two genres where you get to have a full-on, like, freak out with your keys out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the only time you get to do it, and it works, and no one judges you for doing it.
Incredible. I think there's two members of the band now playing keys. So I don't know which one does it, but like, it's awesome. Great guitar solo as well, to fade the track out. Just like incredible instrumental chemistry on this album. Like, and they had a lot of that in Approbation, obviously, but here it's just like ramp it up. That the band just sounds so locked in this release, and they're very aware of each other. Not one person like overplays or takes things a step too far. It's all very tastefully done. Special shout out to Osteen. I'm not sure, I probably fucked up his name, but the bass player, like the bass player on this is ridiculous. Like the runs, the little twists he puts on, this is just like full of like bass playing earworms, if that was a thing. Like just very inventive, and like killer bass tone. Like the thickness on this album is just cuts through. Like just that groove on, I think it's Ghosts of Yesteryear, like so heavy, and it's all bass, like really cool. The stellar production obviously helps deliver as well.
Yeah, just a little bit.
It just like those big moments just sound even bigger. Really, it's a really rich sounding album. Like you can hear there's lots of nuance there, but it has this like really incredible vintage kind of warmth to it, that just gives it huge depth, like stunning production. So like this album, a lot of this is super strong. A lot of this outdoes what the Approbation did. You can hear it's like a more mature, more confident sounding Ocrust. Like without a doubt that the musicianship and the songwriting is leveled up. But I do have a couple of...
Right, this is the but bit that I'm...
couple of wee things that kind of niggle me.
So what specifically, Dave, is it that
hurting
your butt?
There's couple of wee things. The main thing that kind of I felt was missing was the Approbation. The Approbation had something over this album for me, and that thing it had was emotion. There was something about that album that was just profound, and it often happened in the most simple moments of that album. They just hit me on a completely different level. When those bits of light came through on the Approbation, it was just like, wow, like reflective and uplifting. And I'm not saying this album doesn't have uplifting moments, but for some reason they didn't just quite pull me in like the Approbation did, and I didn't get that same feeling that I got from that album. The other two wee things, and this is just my opinion on this people could completely disagree, but
this is where the internet turns on Dave.
The one thing I really thought was cool about the Approbation was the fact they used those heavy vocals so sparingly. Like they put it in on that one part at the end of that track, and it was really cool. A really cool moment of like, oh fuck, shit.
On the first listen as well, you were just expecting more of it, and this album when you're like, actually doesn't need it.
Yeah. And on this album, I thought like when the heavy vocals came in, I was like, yeah, that's really cool at the end of the second track again. And then they bring them back in again a couple of extra times throughout the album. And again, I kind of felt like, I don't think it needed it. Like, I think having it on that one track again would have been cool. Like, just that one part where you're like, oh fuck, those heavy vocals. Hearing them again, I don't know if it had the same impact as it did on the second track the first time I heard them. So I don't know if I would have included them. Obviously, I'm not in the band, so they don't give a fuck. But I don't know if I would have.
I suppose it's intent as well. If the subject matter, and once again I have to stress, I would not have joked as I did at the start, had I known the dark subject matter. But what the vocalist is implying or singing at that point is something that requires.
But
then maybe it goes that way. To me, I disagree with that. I think they're placed well.
Look at other prog bands that don't have heavy vocals. They still, have heavy parts with big impactful sections, and it's like and darker themes. They don't necessarily need the heavy vocal.
You don't need to do have like some of the most haunting vocals.
I think it was
conveying the most darkest shit can be sung.
I think it worked better because they used it less on the previous album for me. The other thing, and this is just a small thing, his vocal is amazing. Like Ross Jennings on the Malevolence. I don't know. I feel like it's a very predictable choice to have. And I know they're on the same label, and he's a huge band from Haken, and he's a great vocalist. But we spoke about this in the past, where you're bringing in another vocalist that's kind of doing the same thing.
I can't argue against this, but I think I love it. I love the choice.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree. You're using my own words against me right now, and I have said the many times, like I use this in death metal all the time, where I'm like that. Yeah. Why is this other death metal vocalist guesting on here? You're literally in the same tone. Yeah. You literally sound the same. This makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, I mean, Simon can sing the melodies, so he could have done that. I think the better option would have been to bring in a heavy vocalist and have him do that heavy part on the album. Like, oh yeah, that's cool. Because Simon could do it live. He can do the heavy vocals, but I think maybe bringing that in would have been a better contrast for me. But that's just a small thing. I still managed to play this 5 times, even though we had 6 albums to review this week. And I also actually played it as a prequel to the Approbation, because this
I did the same actually.
Yeah,
Fuck that. I'd listen to it and then listen right into the Approbation.
Yeah, and it actually works incredibly well back to back. The closing track on Waving at the Sky, like it's like acoustic chords and stuff, so it kind of transitions perfectly into the first track of the Approbation, which
Makes
also
you
has.
wonder if that's you've got to think they'll deny it because they're humble that way. But this old thing, but I wouldn't dispute that was an idea.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, they transition very well into one another. But yeah, so that's my thoughts. Score wise. What I'll ask you the question anyway. What
Why
are you
asking me?
Just for
so the graphic can appear.
Yes, exactly, Duncan. Yeah. What are you scoring Waving at the Sky by Ochrost?
This is a 5. Like I think, unlike you, I prefer this to Approbation. I think in terms of a cohesive one unified sound, I will double down on some things you said. I would say don't like cherry pick songs in this one. This is an album listen to. Definitely good headphones, but to me, this is about the most confident second album I've ever heard any band put out. That isn't, I don't know, the Deftones. Around the first, really fucking strong. But you know what I mean? It just has that all the way right through it. Everything is just better than it was before.
Yeah.
I don't know how many bands can elevate everything when you are two people. Elevate everything within your sound to that level. I think the songwriting is just mind-blowing, and I hear what you're saying. I like the heavier vocals on here. I like the inclusion.
Preference.
But as a personal choice.
Yeah.
It should not affect your score of 5.
I don't disagree with anything you've said. I think this is a more confident album.
That. Yeah, it's like
the musicianship is, they've raised the bar in all places.
Yeah.
I just feel there's a couple of small things and
personal resonance that I had.
Yeah, the Approbation has
emotional to me.
it had a special sauce to me, and it's the special sauce is hard to put your finger on or describe. It's just a thing that an album has. And you're like,
every time we were telling people to check that album out, what I tended to get back was, well, what makes it special, and I'm like, listen to it. Like that's my go-to. I can give you words, they don't do it justice. On this one, this emotionally connected more with me, which is a personal choice, but it's a 5. Can't stress that enough. 5, and I still go on this. One of the most exciting bands on the planet. Like the album 2, like
definitely.
Fuck. Yeah. They'll have another album at next month. Music videos shot.
Yeah.
This old thing, question mark. Dave.
4.5 from me.
Cunt.
Sorry. I told you I was going to break your heart. And I aim to deliver, Duncan.
Well, you have delivered. This is the last recording of this show.
So Ochrost, Waving at the Sky, out on June 13th on Inside Out Music. Check out this band, check out the links, have a listen, see what you think. Happy to hear your thoughts and opinions on the new release. That is the review. Thank you for checking out. Holy shit, this is almost 40 minutes long. Thank you for
almost
listening.
The length of the album.
Almost. Thanks for checking it out. Much appreciated. We'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.